the gratitude, being grateful things kind of played out, even though that's what it is. But it really is truthfully, like, I'm trying to rebrand it across the world. It's acknowledging God's blessings. If you acknowledge God's blessings, God will give you more blessings. I can guarantee you this will happen every single time for you in your life, in your family.
Well, on the True Man podcast, we talk about the battle between good and evil a lot. And I don't think there's any doubt about it. We are living in difficult and challenging times. Now, if you're going to be at your best for not only yourself, but your family, you need to be physically and mentally positively fit. And that starts with God. And let's talk more about that today. So, welcome to the podcast, Daniel Krynzel. Daniel has been given a mission from God to connect alpha men and their families to God in a coordinated effort to win this battle of good versus evil. Daniel created the app GodWalk, and I'm sure he's going to tell us more about that today. So, Daniel, welcome to the True Man podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mike. This is really exciting. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, thrilled to have you here. So, Daniel, I really admire your passion and your desire to connect to men. Talk about how this dream got started.
Yeah, it was. I got to kind of take everyone back and just let them know a little bit about me, because
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
really important. I've been a businessman my whole life. Like, I was 13 and had my first business cutting lawns in Ohio. So I
I
was
can
making money.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I bought my first car when I was 16. I played baseball in high school and college, and when I was done with that, I got into the mortgage business and crushed it. Opened up my own mortgage company, made millions of dollars, and I started a coaching business. I was coaching realtors how to lead gen and how to make more sales in their industry, and it was great. And it was one day I was in the office with a bunch of money coming into my bank account and a huge pipeline, and I felt empty. And I felt like there was like a hole that was like literally like in the middle of my chest. And I had a connection with God, but not nearly as strong as I do today. But I knew that I needed to ask God what was going on. Like, God, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I feel this way? People would die to have my life. Like, I have motorcycles and
Yeah.
RVs and toys and houses and the family and money. And I don't feel right. And so I started praying. And that was like the start to, who Daniel is today. It's really
Had you
exciting.
ever experienced anything like that before, or what do you feel like triggered it? Just
I throughout there was definitely a mortgage crash, if you remember, in '08, and there was like some ups and downs.
yeah.
Like, everyone knows about that. So I was involved in that. I remember before the crash, I was at the height of my financial career at that time, and I was making a lot of money, and there was still something like empty inside. Like, I was still missing something. So it was kind of a trend that kept going on. And then
Yeah.
the crash happened, I built it back up, and then I'm at a higher peak than I ever been. And I had the same feeling. It was like this reoccurring like hole that just kept like opening up in my chest. And it's like, I just don't feel good. And I'd buy motorcycles and toys and race cars and
Yeah.
houses, and we'd go on vacation as a family. And it just wasn't right.
Man, a lot of guys experience this. Most don't take action on it. What really caused you to take hold of that feeling and run with it and try to build a closer relationship with Christ?
Well, the decision was made that day. It was pretty simple. Here's why. Like, I knew there was something bad that was going to happen, even though the trajectory of my business and my pipeline and the bank accounts and everything, disagreed with this comment. Everything was great. I
Right.
just knew, though, because of how I felt, like
Yeah.
God was working inside of me. Like, he was, he was in my heart and in my body and in my being. And he was just letting me know, like, hey, you better check in with me. You better change. Cause if not, like, I'm probably going to crash again. but like everything was good. Like there was the market was great. My coaching business was great. Like everyone was healthy. I just like had this inner feeling that was like,
Yeah.
I, it's not right. I'm not doing the right thing. And I wasn't hurting anybody. I was doing great loans. I was doing great coaching business. It was just, I just knew that there was something missing. So out of like this healthy fear and this search inside my own self, I'm like, I'm gonna make a commitment that I'm gonna walk with God every single morning. I'm gonna strategically walk with God every single morning, and I'm gonna find out like why I'm here, why He made me, because I knew it wasn't like a money problem for me. It was a purpose.
Yeah.
It was a purpose problem. Like, what's my purpose? Like, I get it. And as I started doing this, like God opened up to me, and my life has never been the same since I made that commitment.
Well, when you made that commitment, what did you do exactly? There
Yeah.
may be guys out there going, "Okay, I hear what you're saying, but what did that look like as you made that shift into a new season of life?"
Yeah, it was an abrupt shift, by the way. Like, like I do
Yeah.
everything, I overdo everything, which is a great thing because that's why I was successful in business and always will be, is because I overdo everything. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to walk with God. So what I'm going to do is I back then, I would get up before the sun came up every single morning. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to go to the park and I'm going to strategically walk with God. And I'm
Yeah.
literally going to have a cup of coffee in my hand and, my keys in my pocket. And I'm just going to start walking with God in the park. And I'm not a park guy, Mike. I just, I used to be a baseball guy. So I was like, outdoors, but like then I was an office guy. I wasn't a park guy. So I'm like out of my element, but I'm there with God and I'm walking with God. And I brought my strategic ability in building business to actually talking with God.
Mm.
And that's what changed things. It's great when people go to church and, being a Christian and a follower, like that's beautiful. The thing is, that's once a week.
Yeah.
That there's not enough momentum built, and then that whole system is great when it comes to the small group. You're checking in the middle of the week or whenever those Tuesday night or Wednesday night men's groups are, or whatever, reading the Bible and studying and doing all the things that is promoted in the church. That's great, but there's still 5 days out of the week if you're hitting two that you're not connecting strategically with God. So
Right.
like I knew this, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna walk with God every single morning, and my life changed exponentially because of that decision and the ability I have to strategically, backtrack everything that I want. Like if there's something that I want, I just figure out what I need to do and then I just do it. I just get into action. I overdo the action, which has been,
Action's good
yeah, action's really good.
most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right action.
Yeah, it does. Well,
So
go ahead.
I was walking with God consistently and I built like this rhythm in this flow. And depending on how much time you want me to spend on it, I can explain that. But this is something that's duplicatable with everyone that's listening. They can literally use this formula or this ability that I created to be able to actually channel God's
Yeah,
voice for God to like.
absolutely. Get into
Okay,
that a little bit because
okay,
I do think that's an important topic because one of the things, and I know I've experienced this in my life. People will say, "Well, how do you know when I've heard from God?" You know, what what is that all about? So talk about that a little bit.
yeah. So I started this with like I need answers, right? Like
Sure.
I need to know what my financial purpose is. Like I don't know how that those two words kind of hit my head, but financial purpose. What is my financial purpose? Like I just knew that was what I wanted to focus on. So that's what I focused on. Is I started asking strategically what my financial purpose was. And God would give me little pieces. And I was so consistent with my walks that I started to develop this rhythm. And here's how the rhythm started. It was I started my very first question was like, or my very first piece in my walk was setting an intention with God.
Mhm.
Like,
Sure.
God, my intention today is to work on this situation in my life, whatever it is. Now, God, and I came humble. I'm not giving orders to God. I would
Right.
recommend against that for anyone that's listening. So- but I was very humble, and I was like, God, I would really appreciate if we could work on this. This is really weighing on me, you know. God, I really need to know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I've got all this money, and I hate my job and my business that I built, and my, you know, like my intention today is like figure out what's going to happen here. What am I supposed to do? You know, that would be an intention.
Yeah.
And then I realized that like as I was setting my intentions, like I was starting to get into fear, because a lot of the
Mm.
times the intention was it was fear based.
Yeah.
And like God isn't open when you're scared. Like he's there for you, but I noticed like I could open this channel up more and more efficiently, like if I was in gratitude and I was
Oh, yeah.
acknowledging blessings, and I was like flipping the fear to gratitude, or the fear to happiness, or the fear to, you know, being fulfilled. So the second piece was I would set an intention, and then I realized that I needed to like start really honoring the blessings that God gave me in my life. Like really looking at it going, you know what? I am so happy that this happened in my life yesterday. I'm so glad that I was able to cook those steaks and have dinner with the family like we did, because it was the best steak I've ever had in the last 2 years off that grill. Thank you. You know, like I know it sounds kind of
Yeah.
funny, but I realized that like I was doing this so consistently that like I had to like make a system so I could honor the blessings and not have them the same, right? So what I did was I started reviewing the last 24 hours of my day. If I do it every day, like you review your whole life. So I started reviewing the last 24 hours of my day. And you know, God, in the last 24 hours of my day, here's what I seen you do for me. Here's the blessings that I want to acknowledge and I want to thank you. And I would just rattle them off. And you know, like I loved playing the drums with my little boy. I had my daughter is starting to walk, and I was there. I wasn't at the
Yeah.
office. Like, thank you. Like, such a big deal.
I,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I started getting into this rhythm, and it was flipping the fear, even if the base was fear on the intention piece. Then I got into this acknowledging blessings, and like I literally could like feel like the presence open up, and like God like being there for me to like be a part of the walk with me was so powerful.
I think that is very powerful, and I think we sometimes miss that. You know, um, I think God sometimes wants to hear from us directly. You know, not wishy washy. I think a lot of us go to prayer wishy washy. Like, God, how will you show up in my life today? Versus, asking whatever it is. But I
Yeah,
mean, sometimes when it's weighing on your heart, you go ask a direct question. I think that really pleases God when it's done in a heartfelt gratitude way, and it's such a oh gosh, such a more fulfilling way to live, don't you think?
I do. I do. It's the right way to live. Like you know, I the gratitude being grateful things kind of played out, even though that's what it is. But it really is truthfully like I'm trying to rebrand it across the world. It's acknowledging God's blessings. If you acknowledge God's blessings, God will give you more blessings. I can guarantee you this will happen every single time for you in your life, in your family. If you do it that way, it's definitely the way to live. I can't live any other way.
So how are you bringing this to other men?
Yeah. So can we save that for about 5 or 8 minutes? Because
Oh,
yeah, there's something that I'm gonna do for everyone. I'm gonna give everyone a gift, if that's okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I kind of want to lay out the foundation though first.
Yeah, no, Daniel, it's your interview. You can
Okay.
let's
Well,
have it, man.
I think we got their attention too, Mike. I think if they
Yeah, and
keep
well,
listening, I think it'll be
tricks of the
so.
trade.
Yeah. So I'm setting the intention. I'm getting into the gratitude or the acknowledgement of blessings that God gave me, and then the third flow that I really realized as I was walking was I had to like lay it on the table. It says it a lot in the Bible, like
Yeah,
you got to come to God with truth. And
yeah.
I don't quote the Bible, even though, I've read the Bible. I believe in the Bible. Um, but I don't quote verses. But what I do know is that it talks about it like throughout the whole Bible about you being truthful with God and you starting where you're at with God when you're in prayer. And so that's what I started doing. And it wasn't like I did it because it was in the Bible. I did it because it just felt right. Like
Yeah.
God was leading me. And so I developed this third piece of my God walk. And what I did was is I started like copping or admitting to where I was in the target areas of my life. Like, God, where I'm at today and my financial purpose is here. My marketing is here. My business is here. I made a bunch of money and I hate it. Whatever it is, it was like, God, I know that my financial purpose is not in alignment, even though I'm helping people on the coaching business, or I'm helping people get their homes, or I'm helping people do this, or I've got my investments running. Like, it just doesn't feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm looking for your help today. But like, that's being honest. That's being like vulnerable and real, like
Yes.
to God. So I started doing that, and then I would do it with my body and health. I'd be like, this is how I ate yesterday. This is how I exercised. This is how I showed up physically. This is how I thought about my body yesterday. Like, I started doing this, and it like this channel just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like it was almost like God was walking right next to me as I started being truthful with him and like being
Mm,
intentional about it. And then the third piece that I would focus on, like laying it on the table, being truthful with God, was in my relationships.
yeah.
This is how it is at home. This is how I feel like I'm showing up as a father. This is how my kids are showing up. This is what I don't like. This happened yesterday and it was crap. Like, we need to work on this, please. Like, I need your help with this. I need to know how to show
Right.
up. Like, I'm about to shake someone, God, like, help me, or whatever. But I would be so like like arrows straight, like with the truth with God. And I just felt this thing like opening, and like he's like almost like it feels like he's physically
Mm,
holding my hand as I'm walking. And it started really opening up the channel of me being able to get direct coaching from God on a daily basis, which brings me to the most important part of the walk, which is asking for the guidance, the direct guidance. And that is where my life changed exponentially. Um, can we talk a little bit about that?
absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it's really important, and um I don't think that this is such a great conversation, because I don't think we talked about what can we call it? Direct prayer. I mean, just being this direct with the Father, I think is a good subject matter. So yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Ye Yeah, you mentioned earlier when we were talking, Mike, about, um, people going to God in prayer, and it, like, just, like, on a whim.
Yeah.
Like, "Show up somehow, God, I'm ready for you. Show
Yeah.
me a
Yeah.
sign."
Show me a sign.
It could
Yeah.
be a billboard, a smoke signal. I don't know if it's gonna be you, but give me something, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
like, sometimes, like, that's, like, the society way of praying. Like, no.
Well, it's not relational. It's
Nope.
not relational, and it almost comes across as a demand, and,
Yeah.
that's, what I found, and I'm pretty confident what you found is that there's a special intimacy that comes with that relationship, with Christ, and it works both ways.
Yeah.
And both of us really want the same thing at the end of the day. And so showing up when you want to with wishy-washy stuff is not relational at
No,
all.
not at all. Not at all, and it's not strategic, and I'm gonna use the word again. It's my favorite word, Mike. Like,
I love it.
if you're not strategic, like, you're not gonna be able to design your life. You're not, because you're not doing things with intention. If you do things with intention and you're strategic about getting the result you want, you're gonna get it. It's that simple,
Yeah.
It happened for me when I was 13. Like, I knew that if I got a bunch of lawns to mow, I would make a bunch of money as a 13-year-old, and I did. It was that simple. Like, it started way back then, and it's been exciting. So I needed, if you remember, I started this with like, I need to know what my purpose is. Why did you make me? Why am I here on earth?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to make the impact? Like those were all the questions I had for God. That's why I started this walk and why I made the commitment to walk with him. So I made the question very specific, and I'd ask the same question every single day. What is my focus and direction for me to maximize my financial purpose? And then I would pause.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty direct.
yeah, yes, very direct.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's not, God, help me make a bunch of money so I can buy another motorcycle, or God, help me pay my bills, or God,
Right.
man, the power is going to
Well,
get shut off. Like
there's a little
none
bit
of
of
that.
a tone to this too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah.
And also the words financial purpose is not, how do I become a millionaire, God? It's, how do I live my financial purpose? How do I maximize
Right.
my financial purpose? The purpose, by the way, that you designed for me, God. Think about this. This is, God likes this question. I know he does because he answers it every day for me. So this is what happened. I was doing this over and over and over again to a point to where I would ask the question. And just to set the stage for everyone, I didn't mention this. You have to be walking. It's not a sit and talk with God, it's a walk and talk with God. You have to be in a flow state, you have to be walking. When you build this foundation of walking with God, and you put your body in, you take all of the resistance away when you're walking. You're not in a pew praying, you're not you're not in confession, and I'm saying that's all great stuff if that's what you're into, but it's not that. It's you're walking and you're in a flow state, so the resistance is gone and you open up for God. And so I started walking and I started asking this question, and then I would hear his voice. I would channel God's voice right into my head, and he would start telling me. He'd be like, "This is what you're supposed to do." It was like boatloads of information, and this is what happened then. It was so good, like it was just golden pieces of information that I started bringing my phone with me on my walks. And what I would do is I would just go on like one of the note apps, and I would just hit the microphone on it, and I would speak into the phone. And it started with, I hear God telling me, or God is inspiring me, or God is showing me this picture, God is telling me this, and I would just blurt out into the thing. So I wouldn't like stop and like with my thumbs trying to,
Right.
I
Yeah.
wasn't at my computer like banging on the keys. Like I was in a flow state, I was in a park, just me and God and some ducks usually. and but I would be walking and I would be speaking into my phone. And then what would happen is I would go back to my home office, or my office that I had for a little while then, and I would write out all of the pieces of the golden pieces of action steps that he told me to take. And then that's all I would do for the day, is just take action on the revelation or the coaching that he gave me. And that's how my life exponentially grew, from having a successful mortgage business, having a successful coaching business, having all of these investments, having all of this stuff, to not needing to do any of that anymore, because now I'm like really connected to my financial purpose that God has for me. And my life has never been the same. Like, because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's like, so many men that are listening are going, man, if I just knew like what God truly wanted for me and why he made me, and if I knew like what my gift was and what my talent was to
Yeah.
to to impact the world, like I would do it. Every man would line up and be like, yeah, I'll do it. I hate my job, I'll do it. Like there's a lot of them thinking that right now. That was me. It wasn't just them, it was me.
I
So
think I think people weigh that. I agree with you. I think a lot of people say that and then they go, "Well, that comes with risk."
can I answer that?
Please do.
Okay.
I have a hunch I know where you're going, but yeah.
I believe it's much more risky to play it safe. I believe it's much more risky to just do what you think you're supposed to do to pay the bills. I think it's way more risky to stand in an environment or an industry that you're not supposed to be in just because it feels safe. That's not the way to live, and that's not the way God wants you to live. If you start walking with God, I'm talking directly to everyone that's listening. If you start walking with God and you ask God what you're supposed to do, it's your opportunity to take the action that he's directly telling you to take. That's where your life will change. That's where you'll be fulfilled. That's where you'll be able to make the money you've always been able to make or want to make because you're doing what you're supposed to do. This is not just I'm going to be kumbaya and hold sweat lodges in a tent because you believe that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's not what this is about. This is
Yeah.
about you making serious money in an industry you're supposed to be in, making the impact and changing the world that you're supposed to be doing and being a part of. It might be you affecting the work environment that you already have. It might be affecting your neighborhood. It might be affecting your state, the world, the country. I don't know what it is for you, but I know God knows. And when you start asking God, he's going to start driving you in that direction.
I agree 100%. I mean, I mean, you and I wouldn't be talking if I hadn't followed, what you just said. And it became, at least for me, a matter of trusting that God had me right where He wanted me, and that we were going to go on this journey together. And that required taking some risk, which I take every day. But I don't even think of them as risk anymore. I just consider it part of my trust walk with God on this journey.
Yeah.
And how do I know it's working? Well, I'm sitting here with you as a good example on this podcast talking about this amazing stuff that we get to pass along to other men that may be wondering, what the heck is my purpose? What
Yeah.
does God have in store for me today? And I think it's good to go asking those hard questions, those direct questions like you're talking about, and going on that journey um, that that Christ really wants you to come along on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not your decision. I mean, it is. We are given self-will, but it was already a choice that was made by God when he made you. This is who you're supposed to be. This is who you're supposed to become. It's up to you to get out of your own way and find that and do that. Like, that's how
Well,
simple this conversation is.
yeah, no, that's it. And many people, many men in particular, will tap into their stubbornness before they will tap into the action that they really need to take to push themselves forward in this world.
You're so right. My gosh. I mean, I have the stubbornness that comes out too. Ask my wife.
Oh, I'm right there. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't say that pointing fingers. I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't say it if I hadn't lived it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I another thing that I want to mention, I just spoke about my wife, and whenever I mention my wife, like, I got to tell everybody, God gave me my soulmate because of
Mhm.
this commitment that I made in my office. Like, I didn't know her. I didn't know of her. I didn't know that there was an opportunity. I didn't know that there was a woman like the woman that God gave me when I started making this commitment and walking strategically with God. Remember, one of the questions is what is my focus and direction for me to maximize my relationships? There were some changes that were made when I
Mm.
started asking that question consistently, and she shows up. And when she showed up, it was the woman that supports me, that elevates me, that loves everything that I do. Like, I literally have a woman that loves me unconditionally. Like, a lot of people talk about this, and if you have that, that is amazing for you, and I'm so happy for you. I didn't have that
Mm.
before this commitment was made. Now I do, and my life is that's where it starts. I wake up next to this woman, I see her, I kiss her, and then I go right into blessings with God. Like, God, thank you for her. Like, I know you sent her to me. I did what you told me, and she's here. Like, that's how amazing, like, my life has changed because of a result of that one commitment. Just walking with God on a consistent basis and then taking action when he tells me to do something.
I'm gonna have to go for a walk immediately after this podcast is recorded. I gotta
Yeah.
tell you, you're just inspiring me to go for a walk.
Well, Mike, I'm going to do something for you and everyone that's listening. Is that okay if I give the
Do it.
gift away
Yeah,
now?
let's do it.
Is it ready for the gift?
We're all waiting. We're on
Okay.
pins and needles, Daniel.
So, my mission is to connect as many men to God as possible. Now, the way that I actually walk with God today is through the GodWalk app. I created the GodWalk app because God wanted me to duplicate and actually be on a mission to connect as many men to Him as possible. So, if you want an opportunity to have the GodWalk app for free, you can go to the godwalkapp.com and download it today for free. Thegodwalkapp.com. You'll have lifetime membership for free with that app. Now, this app is available in the Google Play and the iOS store, and it's $399 in the store. If you don't believe me, go there first. And you can buy it there if you want, but I'd rather you get it for free. So go to the godwalkapp.com, and then you actually will get you'll get the software that I use. You'll literally have this app. You'll have examples of me doing God walks inside of it, and you'll see exactly how I set my intention, how I acknowledge the blessings, how I lay it on the table, how I get the golden coaching from God on a daily basis. And you can walk with God strategically so you can find out your financial purpose and you can find out why you're here and what you're supposed to do about it.
Well, we're certainly going to put that in the show notes, so people can go find it because listen, I think one of the one of the major challenges that we have is not understanding what our purpose in life is, and really, it this always amuses me. And I try not to say things in my life like, "Ah, I'm so busy, 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 busy." I actually hate that word. Um, and I think that one of the things that we need to build into our life is, and I tell people, put it down in my planner. It's okay to put time with God. I mean, part of my morning routine, I put my morning routine down on paper. And I think it's okay. In fact, not only do I think it's okay, I think you should be doing it, you know?
Yes.
And it serves sometimes when you take pen to paper or a pencil to paper and you get this stuff down. It, it just supplants itself
Yes.
in your brain, and you need to take this time. And so I just applaud what you're doing. In fact, I have this image in my mind because I love watching The Chosen, and I just so love the guy that plays Jesus. And you're talking about this God walk, and all I can see in my mind is just like Jesus walking around with the disciples.
Yes. You know, another reason I was so excited about being on this show with you, like I was looking at your messaging before and then I was looking at it again right before we went on. And like your message is to like connect men to like be fully alive, to live like fully alive.
Well,
That is so
that's what we're
powerful.
talking about. That's
That's
exactly what we're
I know.
talking about.
I know our message is basically going to the same outcome, which is awesome because everyone that's listening is going to want what we're talking about. That's perfect. We've done what we're supposed to do today in this podcast, you
Well,
know?
yeah, I mean, listen, there's a bit people will say, "Well, I'm a good Christian. I go to church every Sunday, blah 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 blah." There's a big difference. It- and I know you know this, Daniel, because you just gave us a whole story about it. There's a big difference between being a Christian and being fully alive with God in your life. There's a big difference.
Yes.
Big difference. I mean, if and I've experienced this, I'm hearing you experience it. And it's such a powerful thing to have happen. In fact, it's so powerful. You and I are doing the same thing in different ways to try to reach other men. Presumably, I'm speaking for you when I say this, so they don't have to go down that silly walk that us men sometimes put ourselves through for no good reason other than, well, if I just bury this thing down deep in my soul, it doesn't have to be dealt with. But it always,
Yeah.
always, always gets dealt with one way or another.
That's right. That's right. And there's work involved. Like I'm sure you're going to
Absolutely.
agree. You got to do work. This is not fix your thing overnight. Like I was walking with God consistently, and I still walk with God. Like I made that commitment back then that I was going to walk with God every single day until I got the answer. But the funny thing was, like, the answer kept evolving. And he did that on purpose, because now, like, my commitment is every single day for the rest of my life, as long as my communication and the answer keeps evolving. You see what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
never, like, I got the answer to do what I'm supposed to do today. I got the answer on to let go of the mortgage business, to let go of the coaching business, and to run this business and to do this. But it keeps changing. Like, today it's going to be different than, and tomorrow it's going to be different too. And my commitment is for the rest of my life. And it feels so
Yeah.
good to be connected to God. Like, my life is so much better now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. So Daniel, you got to do one thing for me
yes.
before we wrap this thing up. So my dad, Gary, who I just shocked the heck out of him because I brought him up, he likes to walk and listen to my podcast. So just give Gary a shout out while he's walking and
Yeah.
listening to this podcast.
Gary, how you doing, buddy? I'm glad that you're walking and you're listening to this podcast. You are in a flow state right now, and I'm telling you something. You are capturing so much more as you're walking versus just sitting and listening. I'll tell you what, I'm so excited that we're doing a shout out for you.
That was so awesome. I love it. I love it. Daniel, is there any other information you want to give folks before we wrap up here today on how they may be able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I want them to walk with God. That's
Amen.
really like my mission. Just walk with God. Download the app for free. Don't spend $3.99. Go to the godwalkapp.com, thegodwalkapp.com. Download it. Start walking with God on a consistent basis. Your life will change. If you don't believe it, just try it.
Yeah,
And ask
what
God
do you have
and
to
ask God
lose?
about it. Just
What do
try it.
you
It's free. Ask him.
what do you have to lose?
That's right.
Awesome. Daniel, love the mission. Love talking with you. Appreciate your passion. And man, just thanks for coming on the True Man podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Take care.